Hey guys, it's Steven here from Streamplay Dial. I'm here with my co-host Simon, and we're here to bring you another podcast on the news of esports and the gaming industry. If you haven't heard of us before, we have a combination of 10 years of gaming experience, and for me personally, I've been a professional gamer for the Fnatic team for about 2 years and for StarCraft 2. It's one of the best teams and still currently the one of the largest franchises in the world. Afterwards, I transitioned to Curse, which is known for Curse Voice. They're now bought out by Twitch and Amazon, and the Curse Voice is mostly used for League of Legends, all the other mobile games. And now I'm working at Streamplay.io as a marketing manager and also basically any sort of operations and PR is on my side as well.
Hey guys, I'm Simon. Back in university, I did a few years of competitive WoW Arena, 3 versus 3, and played a few tournaments. And for the EU region, I was in the top, I would say, at least 5 for 3 versus 3 teams. After university finished, I went straight into the gaming industry, started off doing marketing. Like Steven did that for roughly 2 3 years, and then I moved over to the product side of games. Have also been doing that for a few years, slightly longer than marketing. Um, all of the games I've been doing have been mobile games, and a few online browser games. Yep, that's pretty much it.
Cool. Yeah. So let's jump straight into this week's topic. I want to talk a little bit about the new investments into some of the esports teams. There's a bunch of major news that came out this past week, as well as a little bit more about how the streaming industry is working right now between two of the biggest hitters in the industry, which are YouTube gaming and also Twitch TV. So without further ado, let's jump straight into the Cloud9 investment recently actually by FunPlus, which is our parent company at the moment. I thought that was very interesting as a move in terms of investment from us because one, we don't really have a lot of esports presence, but also two, it was just a lot of the deals were done quite quickly, and I thought it was very interesting in the steps that we took versus someone else that gets in like a maybe potentially like an artist or a music artist like Stevie Aoki, for example. But definitely this investment itself, I think it was a great milestone because I personally sort of helped a little bit in terms of doing a little bit of research and got the team and us together to talk about the deal a little more. So I thought this was a fairly good investments. I'm kind of interested in what comes after the investment, and that's the sort of thing that we see a lot in the esports industries. You have a lot of personalities, you have a lot of stars, teams invest into these esports teams, but there's not very much, I feel like, involvement with the teams afterwards to uh, make sure that these teams are going to the direction of the investors. And I feel like that's really contradicting compared to the traditional investments where investors into a company, they typically are on the board of directors and they will help you or they will tell you their direction, the way they want some certain things to be done to make the company successful. So what do you think about this in terms of the difference between the traditional investments versus the esports investment that we're seeing now?
Well, there's going to be well, if you look at traditional investments versus kind of esports investments, one of the biggest differences you could think about immediately would be for traditional investment firms, they would generally have a person or a group that is in charge of a specific field that knows about that field very, very well, that does the investment on behalf of the company. Or if you're an investor in a traditional field, you would have expertise in whatever you're investing in. But for esports, the people doing the investment, be it a company or an individual, they don't have as much experience in this field, or there aren't that many people in the world that have that much experience in this field. Um, you do have, however, managers themselves starting teams that have been in the industry for a while that are investing in their own team. So this is kind of another topic but investment money coming from outside, entirely outside of the team, those people don't have as much experience. But however, they do have. There's a lot of data, you could say, on esports at the moment, how it's growing very rapidly. Its valuation is going to increase tremendously by 2019, 2020, and it's going to be a few $billions by that time. There's also the talk of how there's many areas of esports where people can make, or the investors can potentially make money off of in the future, or the teams can potentially make money off of in the future, in terms of, say, well, let's just split it into four groups. Probably ticket sales, sponsors and advertisements, general merchandise sales. What else is there? Anything?
I think like franchising, more or less. It's like a lot of it comes down to, for esports, like as a team, it's a lot of it's like branding, right? Like the brand power is really shown. Like everybody knows what Coca-Cola is, but not everybody knows what, like, I don't know, like 百事可乐, which is a Chinese knockoff brand of Coca-Cola. Essentially, you won't know that what that is, just purely from a brand power. So there's a lot of reach, like social media reach, for example. The amount of people that knows or recognize a brand, I think that's a very important asset as well.
Yeah, definitely. So that being said, there's loads of ways that the investors can potentially make money back from in the future, and that is what they're looking at. They're taking a risk, as did early investors in, let's say, what's that video thing?
What do you mean? Like, are you talking about like gaming, or
talking about what's that called?
Snapchat? Oh, like Oculus or
VR? Yeah, Oculus VR. The early investors in VR, they didn't really make the early investors didn't really get their money back. I would say only a few did, but the investors that came in a few years after the technology had already been developed or was starting to get developed maturely, those investors made more money than the very early investors, or the investors into. It's the same case with investors into VR games or AR games. There are a few successful ones out there, but the technology is not as good as it can be, let's say, in the early stages of that technology. It's the same with esports now. The early investors are taking a gamble. They're probably at the early middle phase right now. But they want to get into this industry as fast as they can before the industry matures, so they have first say and first dibs on the best teams. So that's a big thing.
Yeah, definitely, I agree. It kind of reminds me a little bit like Shark Tank. You know how basically they have the products ready and they go present to the guys at the Shark Tanks, and they basically get like an offer on, I'll invest into like $500,000 into your company. You gave me 30% of your share and so forth. That's something that's very similar, where you talk about how they're not very familiar with the industry, which Shark Tank guys probably won't as much, but what they do know is the way products work, where the sales, the numbers come in. But I feel like it's a little different than what is now the investment into esports, because esports is the franchise is so different than a normal, like, I would say, like football, basketball team, in a sense where, you know, a lot of times the brands, the way brands, the promotions work, is maybe like it's not necessarily about the team that wins the most. It's about teams with like maybe potentially the most fans, or teams with the most amount of cool streamers that everybody watches. You know, it's things like that. It's quite different than just purely skill based. Like how I feel like if you play basketball, like you probably don't know the guys that play like the fun side of the basketball compared to someone like Steph Curry, Draymond Green, things, people like that. So it's quite different just in terms of the dimension of esports and the investments and the way things are getting done. And I feel like that's the aspect that a lot of the investors are not going to be very familiar with. But also it might, in my opinion, it might actually open up like a new opportunity, let's say, for these kind of investors that are not very familiar with esports in general. They might hire somebody who's actually a lot more invested. They've been in the esports industry for such a long time that they know a lot more about what kind of number is right, what kind of number is not good, what needs to be achieved at certain points for a good investment or good return and so forth. So I think I mean, I like that the investors are putting money in, but I just want them to, have some sort of transparency. Like there right now in esports, there's no really transparency, like what goes in, what goes out, and so forth. And I feel like there needs to be some sort of transparency that says, okay, well, so what's the level of involvement with the investors, or what are they actually really getting? And these are kind of information that's not really available compared to how a traditional investment works, which is I will give you this much money, and in 5 years you pay me back however much, 30%, or let me own 20-30% of your company and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, definitely, I think that's the goal, at least, to have some sort of simple transaction and trade between the investors and current teams. And yeah, so with that said, I feel like we're kind of diving in and not really knowing exactly what is going on. So I feel like we'll actually, for I think the podcast after this next one, in the upcoming few podcasts, we'll invite actually one of the board of directors of investors from Cloud9 to come on. His name is Dan. He's VP of growth, I think, or something. Yeah. So he'll actually come in our podcast in the near future. We'll hear his opinions and get some more insights, exclusive insights from him on our involvement with Cloud9, what sort of things investors are looking for Cloud9. And so let's move on to the next topic. I know this is quite fast this week, but we want to save the best part for later with someone who is has a lot more experience, at least in terms of investments into this kind of industry. So again, next topic, we'll talk a little bit about how YouTube and Twitch are officially at war here. YouTube actually recently announced that they basically acquired the ESL Counter-Strike league and also the ESC. I think that's another one of the biggest Counter-Strike leagues out there next to E-League. And knowing that Twitch is not only for gaming, but it's the place where people watch esports. I feel like I saw a lot of Blizzard promotions onto Facebook Live, but I feel like that was not nearly as successful as it could have been compared to the things that YouTube is doing, which is basically directly acquiring license rights and published rights for the biggest Counter-Strike tournaments out there for online viewing purposes. So this is going to actually, I think it will bring a lot of users from Twitch TV over to YouTube just purely from these leagues alone, even though they're quote unquote only like a few leagues out of many leagues going on throughout the year. It's the first step that YouTube basically took as a drastic step to acquire organizations to stream onto their platform instead of Twitch.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's definitely the right direction YouTube needs to take. If you look at Twitch and YouTube is kind of seen as a general video broadcasting or video platform with all kinds of stuff. Whereas Twitch, if you think of Twitch or if you want to watch gaming videos, you're going to think of Twitch straight away pretty much. It's the place for games, whether live games or streams or videos. Whereas YouTube doesn't have that appeal directly to gamers. So YouTube, by acquiring ESL and ECS, they are able to say, okay, if we have one of these organizations hosting a game, to watch the game or be part of it, you have to come to YouTube to do that. So that's going to bring in a lot of new people, and it will also make YouTube become more of a game hub, I would say, and more like Twitch in that sense, which it is not now. So that's definitely a good step in the right direction.
Right. No. So yeah, YouTube just acquired their licensing right. I think ESL and ECS will be really expensive to actually buy the entire thing. I think they only bought the licensing right. So they're basically the thing right now is with almost any broadcaster in general, if you want to do any sort of gaming related things, it's always on Twitch, right? Like, so Twitch basically has a monopoly, and YouTube just says, hey, well, you're not a big shot in this industry anymore. We're going to basically buy out the licensing rights from all the organizers, because the organizers, all they care is about money. So it doesn't matter whether they broadcast it's on Twitch or YouTube, whichever one, doesn't really matter to them. And YouTube is obviously offering them a lot more money to do so, and Twitch is right now just says, well, we don't really know what we're doing. So maybe I think this is really the first step where YouTube just starting in the fight between the gaming industry. YouTube is definitely throwing the first punch to acquire more users in a drastic way by just slamming money against Twitch TV.
Well, it's definitely going to be an effective way. I mean, like, Twitch is going to have to come up with some, what's it called, very, very good ways to kind of combat this. I mean, they could even host their own tournaments, or they could start their own Twitch esports thing to combat the YouTube deal. But the rights, as you said, to host the tournaments on YouTube or the license to host the tournaments exclusively on the YouTube is going to mean that Twitch is not going to be able to do so. So that's a lot of viewers for any games they do that are lost.
Yeah, I mean, again, people are probably going to still watch things on Twitch regardless.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Twitch has a monopoly for the longest time on the gaming industry, and again, like if you ever want to stream a game or stream any content, you want to first go to Twitch TV, just because they have a monopoly. They do whatever they say. They can do whatever they want. They don't even have to give a good deal to you to make it fair. And now YouTube is coming in, basically supported by Google. They're saying, hey, well, if you're just giving people terrible deals, we're just going to steal all of your organizers to us. So that's really what happened. And content licensing for eSport at least, hasn't really been a thing until basically last year. And I remember this clearly because I was working on a project called LiveCap TV, which is very similar, basically the same as Twitch Clips. It's an add-on where you can add to capture clips onto Twitch from Twitch TV, and you can watch it immediately right after. And there was a lot of talk about content licensing coming up very, very soon for various league organizers or any sort of streamers, YouTubers, or I guess Twitch streamers as well. So it's actually becoming increasingly important for these competitors to start buying out various leagues for a higher price of money. And again, I think this is definitely really caught Twitch TV a little bit off guard, just because they solely had their monopolizing part. They're a lot more focused on making the community more or less engaging. So they came out with like the Twitch bits. They came out with Twitch, I think, crates or something like that. They also have the subscription and so forth. But what I personally feel like is, since they've been sitting at the only spot for the longest time, they stopped thinking about the competitors. And that's where they kind of went wrong with this part, where YouTube basically is about to probably very like to buy out a bunch of deals for all of their organizers that are hosting their tournaments online and so forth. Maybe they'll buy out Riot's licensing, which is probably going to be an insane amount of money, but that would be something that, if it comes down to it, that would be a very big source of where Twitch TV's revenue is going to come from.
Yeah, more than revenue, it's going to be a massive source of their kind of viewership. But I still have a feeling like, if you look at Twitch, if you look at the esports contests and tournaments for games such as League of Legends, there's normally a live stream on YouTube as well as Twitch. And if you look at the view numbers, Twitch is going to have at least 10 times as many concurrent viewers, compared to YouTube, which is a huge difference. I mean, what YouTube needs to do better is kind of building itself as a platform for live streaming, be it for games or anything for that matter, because that's what it needs to do before it goes into exclusively gaming, if that's what they want to do. Because YouTube, in the mind of people, is still a video platforms. So it's already pre-recorded content that they can watch whenever they want. Whereas Twitch is live. There's a difference, a massive difference between the two. So YouTube kind of needs to shape itself around that, and then build that into a gaming sort of hub. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. So yeah, I mean, again, Twitch TV and YouTube are shaped into what they want to be for or what people are presuming them to be, as one is being a video hosting website, the other one is live stream. However, we do need to take into consideration that YouTube has a much bigger user base than Twitch. Even though you see like the numbers of streamers and the number of people watching are probably lower for YouTube compared to Twitch. Twitch has much bigger community as a whole compared to YouTube, yeah, compared to Twitch TV, and I just feel like that if it comes down to it, the gaming side is going to be very big, and the only problem with Twitch TV I can see right now is they're 99% doing gaming. They're doing some like music stuff and other stuff on the side, but it's not nearly as important as gaming. But for YouTube, their content is everything. They have everything going on. And gaming is only part of their category, so they're basically focusing on taking out their. I want to say take out because it's really means like a war between YouTube and Twitch. They're trying to take out Twitch TV just on one sector of the industry that their platform is focusing on. So I feel like it'd be a lot easier to convert people to stream on YouTube on various content. And when you stream and watch, the more people watch is maybe there will be a suggestion pop up and say, hey, I see that you've seen the Dota 2 videos. How about watch our this Dota 2 tournament that we have exclusive on YouTube, for example. So they are actually in the earlier stages compared to how Twitch is. But YouTube is definitely I feel like they have the capital to wage a war and get the bids to get popular streamers, get popular organizers to stream on their platform exclusively.
Yeah, I mean, like, another thing that you should take into mind is also how Twitch's product is compared to YouTube's gaming product. Twitch itself has a far more advanced and more mature kind of interaction between the host and the viewers, which YouTube gaming currently doesn't have. So that's also something that YouTube or YouTube gaming need to do if they want to go into this area. They need to build more of a thing for players to viewers to interact with the hosts. So that's something they're lacking strongly on right now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's still relatively new to them. I think if they really want to focus on it, their product will probably be equal to Twitch TV. I think in one of the articles I've read so far, it says there's not really a lot of differences between YouTube and Twitch, except like Twitch clips and some of the small little bits of rewards and systems that Twitch has. Maybe there's like a difference in overlay that Twitch might be a little more optimized and so forth. But I think this is like a really good first step to kind of just show that YouTube is pretty serious about their gaming. They're not going to go away like how the Google Hangout was basically a failure versus Facebook. They're probably going to stick with their guts on this one for at least a few years to see what Twitch does. And again, Twitch is I like Twitch TV. I like the platform itself, but I feel like their decisions, the way their mindset's working is quite, I'll say, a little bit arrogant in a way, where they're just monopolizing everything to the point where they don't really care about their competitors, what they do. They don't care about something until it gets big. That's from experience in the past where LiveCap TV and Outshot.tv and Plays.tv, we basically all have the similar features of doing Twitch clips, gets hundreds, thousands, and millions of views very, very easily. And until our products basically kind of blow up in the Reddit community, within all the other communities, Twitch TV didn't take a single step in making this kind of product. I mean, for them, it'd probably take like half a month to make, because they have the API, they have their own system internally. So again, Twitch has this is kind of an example of why Twitch has sort of an arrogant mindset, where they don't really care of what happens, or if of whatever competitors come in until they become big enough to be a threat. And I feel like YouTube is already doing that, so that they're already throwing the punches without Twitch TV knowing, so that in the future, where I feel like if Twitch doesn't take immediate actions of locking all their contracts down with all their streamers and organizers and anyone else, they're going to start losing a lot out on viewerships, and a lot on basically money, and they're probably going to be driven out of competition very, very quickly if they're not very careful with YouTube. Because again, YouTube is backed by Google. They know exactly what they're doing. They're very, very strong, very competitive, and they have a lot of money. To basically Google versus Amazon once again. But I feel like this time Google is going to, I guess Google and YouTube will have a much higher chance of succeeding compared to how they were with basically Google Plus and Facebook.
Yeah, definitely. And both these teams will have to react, especially YouTube, because the industry is growing really quick, and the next few years will definitely matter. If you can get a foothold in the industry, especially with the different games, the different streamers, the different tournament organizers, you can potentially get a very strong grasp of esports and the esports industry. Because if you look at it now, there's Twitch, like you said, which is in the streaming live streaming industry, and there's not really anything else apart from YouTube, which is coming in. So these two companies, over the next few years, you're going to see who's going to come on top in this war, like you said.
Yeah, so I guess, yeah, with that said, it's let's wrap it up a little bit. Definitely going to be a fierce battle between YouTube and Twitch for sure. And then there might be, if the problem is with Twitch, if Twitch is focusing mainly on YouTube, for example, there might be other sort of platforms that may arise in the West, similar to how it is right now in China, which is actually ridiculous. I think there's several hundred streaming platforms in China on various lifestyles, games, and so forth. And it will become a bid war where some streamers in China, I think they're getting paid tens of millions of dollars to stream on a certain platform for a year, and so forth. So it's quite crazy in terms of the competition, the struggles in China. So I think YouTube's first step is leading the whole industry as a whole to have more competition, to make sure that one company can't monopolize over the industry itself, and I feel like that's very healthy. I mean, it promotes a good product, it promotes a lot of healthy competition. It divides the viewers a little more, it gives them more options to check out different platforms as well. So I feel like personally, this is really good as a first step to the streaming industry. But I think it will be really good for Twitch to kind of start to realize and be more alert of their competitors as well in the future. So yeah, with that said, do you have any final closing thoughts for us, Simon?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at China, like you were just saying, it's a massive market, and I would say the competition is even more fierce than what is going on between the big companies overseas. There's hundreds of companies battling out to kind of take the gaming industry. Of course, there's top companies within the gaming industry for live streaming tournaments as well. But these companies are dishing out even more money than the companies in the West are dishing out. These companies, just for having a single streamer within a game, they're probably paying the guy a few $1 million a year. Over a year. A few $1 million a year. Yeah, a few $1 million a month would be insane. I would go become a streamer then.
Yeah.
But and I would say this isn't happening in the West. So YouTube could kind of take this opportunity to kind of come up with creative ideas, whereas Twitch kind of needs to look out for obviously what YouTube is doing at the same time, but also newcomer companies and what they're doing as well, because they can be sneaky.
Oh, for sure, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of platforms they're actually not very popular right now in the West, but I think they will become increasingly popular as there's going to be more of a acceptance of third-party or non-mainstream streaming platforms in the future. So with that said, I know this is a kind of a short podcast this time, but we're actually going to record. We're actually going to interview another professional gamer tomorrow on a different subject, and we'll probably publish that by Monday of next week, which is like April 2nd, April 3rd, or
Yeah, something like that.
something like that. Yeah. So yeah, with that said, again, thank you guys for checking out our podcast and listening, tuning into our podcast. We really appreciate your time, and hopefully, yeah, if you have any feedback or any suggestions on what you want to hear or any ways to improve our podcast, definitely let us know. And again, this podcast is brought to you by Streamplay.io. We're Steven and Simon, and we hope you have the great rest of your day.